On Sunday, Ecuadorian presidential candidates began the electoral campaign for the second round of elections. The Yemeni army launched an attack against the main airport of Israel in solidarity with the Palestinian people and after receiving strikes by U.S. weaponry. And on Sunday, the Russian army liberated the locality of Sribone in the Donetsk region from under the Ukrainian regime's occupation. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The National Electoral Council of Ecuador modified the calendar of the second round of elections and moved forward the official start of the campaign to Sunday, March 23rd, the same day of the debate between the candidates. The current president of Ecuador and candidate for National Democratic Action, ADN, Daniel Noboa, and the candidate of the Citizens' Revolution Movement, Luisa González, face again on Sunday in a debate for the ballotage to be held next April 13th. In 2023, during the first debate, González came as a favorite after being in first place in the first round with 33.61% of the votes against Noboa's 23.47%, although it was he who ended up winning the election in the second round. On Sunday's debate, education, health and social security, crime and security, economy and employment, as well as governance will be the issues to be discussed in the mandatory meeting. In this context, let's recall the trajectory of the two presidential candidates running in the second round of Ecuadorian elections, among them current President Daniel Noboa, who is opting to be re-elected. Precisely, Noboa, the son of billionaire Álvaro Noboa Pontón and candidate for the National Democratic Action Party, obtained 44.17% of votes in first round of elections. During his term in office, he has used presidential decrees to militarize the streets and facilitate the security of businessmen in the ports. His administration has been marked by a multidimensional crisis in the political sphere, but also bringing about economic recession, high levels of insecurity and energy deficit. His previous electoral campaign was characterized by the violation of constitutional status and the lack of compliance with electoral regulations. Furthermore, in a desperate measure, Noboa militarized the northern and southern borders in the middle of his past electoral run under the pretext of fighting armed groups. Luisa González, a 47-year-old lawyer and former assemblywoman, is seeking the presidency of Ecuador in the April 13th run of elections, backed by tight results during the first round and strong popular support. González has two master's degrees, one in senior management from the Institute of National High Studies and another in international economics from the Complutense University of Madrid. With 44% of votes obtained in the first round of presidential elections, González proposes a government focused on 5 axes: justice for good living, security and order, economic well-being with equal opportunities, the fight against corruption and ecological justice, and energy transition for a clean and sustainable future. Representing progressive social and leftist forces, Luisa González has expressed her commitment to the real needs of the people, vowing to ensure access to health, education and giving out credits to encourage youth entrepreneurship. In other news, in Colombia, over 60,000 people have been displaced by the escalation of violence in the Catatumbo region. The government of North Santander assured that 772 people from Catatumbo had to be rescued in humanitarian flights due to the difficult access to the zones where the confrontations have taken place. He also warned that more than 16,000 people are confined to their homes in the area where the conflict is taking place. The clashes between armed groups, which began on January 16, 2025, have killed over 90 people, among them civilians, minors, peace signatories and social leaders. The government of El Salvador started to receive alleged members of a Venezuelan criminal organization expelled from the United States. Last Sunday, the government of El Salvador received the first deportees from the United States, 238 members of the Tren de Aragua gang and 23 members of the Salvadoran gang Mara Salvatrucha. These deportations respond to the anti-immigrant policy implemented by the President of the United States, Donald Trump. In the next few days, the list of deportees that El Salvador is receiving could multiply, as the White House announced that on Tuesday it will revoke the residency permits of 500,000 migrants from Cuba, Nicaragua, Haiti, and Venezuela. In Panama, workers announced new mobilizations against neoliberal measures. Social and trade unions leaders announced a program of struggle in rejection of Law 462 that reforms the Social Security Fund. During a press conference, they announced that this Sunday organizations will resume their mobilizations and will congregate on the so-called Cinta Costera, an action that will be complemented with an interaction with social networks. On Saturday 30th, a national meeting of leaders will be held to discuss future fighting actions. Law 462 increases the retirement age by 3 years, provides for the privatization of the Social Security Fund, and allows its funds to be turned over to the banks and pension management companies. And now we have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates and more. We'll be right back, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The Yemeni army launched an attack against the main airport of Israel in solidarity with the Palestinian people and after receiving strikes by U.S. weaponry against its civilians and military infrastructure. After the strike to the Ben Gurion International Airport, conducted using a hypersonic ballistic missile, the Yemeni Houthis assure they will continue attacking Tel Aviv until the end of the Zionist aggression against the Gaza Strip. In this context, the Yemenis also confirm an action with drones and missiles against the U.S. aircraft carrier and several warships of the enemy army in the Red Sea. Tensions in the region have further escalated amid continued Israeli violations of the ceasefire and U.S. support for the occupation and displacement of the Palestinian territories.
Yemen will continue to support the Palestinian people and prevent Israeli navigation in the previously announced area of operations until the aggression ceases and the siege on the Gaza Strip is lifted.
In Palestine, at least 30 people were killed and dozens wounded during overnight Israeli army attacks on the Gaza Strip, and as part of the Zionist genocidal campaign, the total blockade imposed in the enclave has lasted 22 days, aggravating the humanitarian situation. Wafa news agency reported that 3 citizens were killed and others were wounded when occupation forces shelled a vehicle east of Khan Yunis. On the same day, an Israeli airstrike on displaced persons killed 2 citizens in the Tal al-Sultan neighborhood west of Rafah. Since Tuesday morning, the Israeli occupation has resumed its genocidal aggression in the Gaza Strip, which as of Thursday night had cost approximately 600 martyrs and more than 1,000 wounded, most of whom are children, women and the elderly. The Palestinian Center for Human Rights accused Israel of using the lack of water as a weapon to make the Gaza Strip inhospitable. The organization warned that the humanitarian disaster in the region threatens the lives of over 2 million people as they do not have access to basic supplies such as clean and safe water. In this sense, the organization informed that the water and wastewater treatment infrastructures had been severely affected due to the Israeli bombings. The entity further stressed that Tel Aviv's decision to cut off the electricity supply to a desalination plant in Gaza aggravated the humanitarian crisis. Meanwhile, the Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs denounced that these actions were part of the ethnic cleansing campaign to wipe Palestinians off the map. France, Germany and the United Kingdom expressed their concern over renewed Israeli attacks on Gaza and called for an immediate return to the truce. The three countries urged Israel to fully respect international law and allow immediate humanitarian access to the Gaza Strip. In a joint statement, they stressed that the resumption of Israeli attacks is a dramatic setback for the people of the hostages, their families and the entire region. On the other hand, on the statement it was emphasized that the civilian population has the right to have peace and security, stressing that the conflict cannot be resolved by military means, as this will only lead to the death of more Palestinian civilians and Israeli hostages. At least 7 people killed and 40 others wounded in Israeli attacks on dozens of villages in southern Lebanon on Saturday. According to the Lebanese Health Ministry, the deadliest attack took place in the city of Tulin, where 5 people were killed, including a girl, while 11 were injured, including 2 children. Israel carried out this series of attacks on the pretext of rocket fire from Lebanese territory. However, the Hezbollah movement denied any involvement, and experts call it a false flag attack. The ceasefire truce, which came into effect on last November 27th, has been violated almost daily by the Israeli regime, despite constant appeals by the Lebanese authorities to respect the agreement. Dozens of people mobilized in Israel in rejection of the mishandling of the hostage crisis by the Netanyahu's government. Demonstrators gathered outside of the Prime Minister's residence in Jerusalem to manifest their disagreement with the measures implemented by the cabinet. The demonstrators affirmed that they have lost confidence in the country's cabinet and demanded that the hostages in Gaza should be returned to their families as soon as possible. On the other hand, the citizens rejected the order issued by the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to dismiss the head of the country's internal security service, Ronen Bar, after accusing him of being responsible for several events. On Sunday, the Russian army liberated the locality of Sribone in the Donetsk region. The Russian Defense Ministry reported that in the last 24 hours there was fighting in the settlement and in other places on the front line. The authorities report that at least 1,160 Ukrainian troops were killed during the day. They also confirmed the destruction of armored vehicles, automobiles, artillery, including a French-made Caesar Hotweiser. The Russian Defense Ministry also announced that the army had shot down some 59 Ukrainian drones in the southwest of the country. The ministry reportedly had shot down 29 unmanned aerial vehicles in Rostov region, 20 in Astrakhan, 3 in Volgograd and other regions. The entity further denounced that the attacks on civilians in Astrakhan region left damage to residential infrastructure, while Ukrainian forces hit to death a woman on their strikes on Rostov. The provinces bordering Ukraine denounced the continuous impacts of projectiles and drone incursions, which forced the population to seek shelter elsewhere. We have a second show break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English, that you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final show break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to From the South. Pope Francis has been discharged from the Yemeni Hospital after spending over a month hospitalized due to a respiratory infection. The Supreme Pontiff of the Catholic Church was hospitalized on February 14th due to a polymicrobial infection of his respiratory tract, with tests indicating a complex clinical picture for one of the oldest popes in the Church's history. On Saturday, his medical team announced the Pope would be discharged from hospital on Sunday and would need 2 months of rest at the Vatican. Upon leaving, the 88-year-old greeted his well-wishers from a balcony at Yemeni Hospital. Many worshippers and people around the world united in prayers for the Pontiff's health to improve.
I was so happy. It's been a long wait. We've been praying. When I had, right from the point I heard that he was sick, we started praying. I came here the very first day when he was hospitalized. I dedicated my prayer, and I was so happy when I heard that he would come up to give us a blessing. So I'm so happy. I'm so excited.
Actually, he always has a sense of a sense of youth, but also a sense of joy and a sense of spirit. So I think he's truly not only a good leader in terms of faith, but also in terms of character and morals, right? Always a sense of joy. You can see the smile on my face. I'm very excited to see him smile and whatnot.
On Saturday, Japanese Foreign Minister Takeshi Iwaya and his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi held the 6th China-Japan high-level economic dialogue in Tokyo. During the meeting, the representative of the Asian giant said that since the normalization of diplomatic relations between China and Japan, bilateral trade has remained at a high level of $300 billion for 15 consecutive years. Wang also stated that both nations should maintain the tradition of promoting political relations through economic cooperation, dialogue and exchanges in all sectors as new engines of growth. China reaffirmed its economic policy aimed at boosting domestic consumption of the sessions of the China Development Forum 2025. The director of the Central Rural Leadership Group Office, Han Wenxiu, granted that he will ramp up labor productivity in order to raise incomes of urban and rural residents. They had explained that the next step would be to focus on key areas to stimulate national demand. In addition, the strategy of such office would boost breakthrough with a view to increasing life quality of the elderly and stimulating economies in the health and sport areas. The Ecuadorian government registered a new leak of oil derivatives in the Amazon province of Napo. The Ministry of Energy and Mines detailed that the personnel of the Ecuadorian Electric Corporation and Petroecuador have been working on placing a floating barrier in the Coca River. The spill jeopardizes the infrastructure of the country's main hydroelectric plant, which is operational and generates 1,100 megawatts to the national power grid. In this context, on social media, citizens have questioned the government for justifying these events by arguing that they were intentionally triggered. On Sunday, March 23rd, is World Meteorological Day, the date on which the World Meteorological Organization was created in 1950 in Geneva, Switzerland. The objective of this commemoration is to take the world population aware of the importance of caring for the climate and to warn about the effects of climate pollution. Meteorology studies the atmospheric changes that occur at all times using parameters such as air temperature, humidity, atmospheric pressure, wind and precipitation. The objective of meteorology is to predict the weather in 24 or 48 hours and, to a lesser extent, to produce a medium-term weather forecast. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok as well. For Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.